Here becomes the biggest challenge right here is working with someone above us because we're going to be talking about some things that are uncomfortable. We're going to be talking about some things of working with our bosses. Okay, assess the situation. This is really, really important. Don't jump the gun. You may want to speak to that person in private. Okay, assess the situation, maybe even get a little feedback from some others. You don't want to get into gossip, but you want to assess the situation and just kind of get a vibe of what others are feeling with this person. But then, if you do speak to this person, if you were to go to uh, talk to them, you are going to want to do this in private. Okay, we're going to want to do this in private. Okay, I've had to insist on respect in the workplace, right? I've had to insist that, and I've had to point to examples. The one thing we want to be careful and not do is do this in front of a bunch of people. One, it's embarrassing to our supervisor, our boss. But two, sometimes the ego person feeds off having an audience, having people around to show their power, to show their authority. But this is one thing that I have found is that people who are in this role will do appreciate when we show respect for ourselves. When we show respect for ourselves, that we know what we're doing. If they are, I've had this happen before where they've put jokingly put the person down continuously as a joke in front of the group and had to pull the person aside and say, hey, this is, I know you're meaning it fun and it's doing it for laughs, but it's not respectful. It's not respectful. Um, I hate the word battle here, but you want to have this conversation on neutral ground if you can. I would encourage you to set up an appointment if you can to have the conversation. But you don't want to have this in front of a whole bunch of people, and you have to stay humble. You have to come into the situation and let them know what they're doing good. You don't want to just start off by saying, "Hey, you're embarrassing, the guy over here every time you start the meeting because you keep doing this." But what you do is say, "Hey, since you've came, this has been going well. This is going well. We really appreciate this, but I do want to give you some feedback." And depending on how long you work with a person, depends on how you want to handle that conversation. I have had to actually, push back hard on some people I've worked with who were not necessarily my bosses, but were same level I was. And in order to get the respect, I had to put some barriers up. I had to make sure that we were on neutral ground, but also make sure that they knew what the barriers were, what the boundaries were. Now, I have to stay calm. If I'm bringing this up, there tends to be an emotional time where I'm have a situation in my mind and I've probably thought about it a lot. It's probably replaying in my head over and over again, which triggers those emotions. But I have to be able to release that. I have to be able to stay calm and talk about this in a professional way. It's not easy, but I can't go in emotional. And I really want to try to prevent from having some type of, even crying if I can, because that I have found this is my own personal observation. Folks with the ego challenge, they don't respect crying. And so I've always tried to, not go that direction, not go for sympathy, right? But to go for a bolder confidence and marking the boundaries. Uh, I also seek insight. When I'm running into this situation, I know a lot of times people don't like to go to human resources. They don't like to talk to others about what's going on. But I have found that there are few people that I can seek wisdom from. I've had people reach out to me just to get a perspective on something, and just that person that you can talk to about a situation. Talk to a guy at a higher education place about a particular person who's running off great um, leaders in the organization, and it's a challenge. But if you don't deal with it, it's probably not going to get any better. It's going to keep doing the same thing. So This may or may not work. Um, Sometimes the supervisor, this person's supervisor may, it may backfire. So you got to be careful on this. But I have, I have done this. But what was interesting was my person that I was having a challenge with years ago, not at my current location, but his supervisor came to me, and I was able to tell him several things that were going on. You know, it was sort of just weird that we were having to do things at his personal residence and these kind of things with our company resources, and I didn't know what to do with all that. And so I was very fortunate that my boss's boss came to me and asked me some questions, which allowed me to share what was going on. And I just shared truth, and I didn't share it in a way that was trying to bring that person down. And so I did consult my supervisor on some of that. You know, ask for permission to be bold, to be honest, to be truthful. That kind of prepares a person knowing that you're coming with some tough feedback. Step back, step back. After you've said it, you may just need to let it sit. You may just need to let it um, sit for a while. Now, I can tell you this can be dangerous too, because the ego person can take this wrong, and they can they can they can use it against you, and they can be very vindictive. So you've got to go with this um, wisely. Sometimes it's just easier not to do anything. But again, that could be running off more people, really good people. So this pushback through strategic questions, using strategy questions on how uh, asking them, hey, so and so, hey, Mr. Smith, I notice you've been doing this really well. What kind of results are you looking for when we're doing this? Hey, you know, Mr. Smith, I'm noticing that this is happening. Where where are we going long, big picture with this? And trying to get them to think through the solution. Sometimes questions are better to ask than to even confront. Um, but again, sometimes the ego is so big it can be get misinterpreted. Um, just depends on the person. But I like this strategy. This one's helped me a lot. Is to ask questions, trying to get clarity for myself, but it helps that person see things. So this is probably one of my favorite strategies to use here. Um, Highlighting the contributions, as we were saying, highlight those contributions. Um, if you use the round robin technique, this one's pretty good. I like this because if you can get into the weeds of what you're needing to talk to, when it says use the round robin, it's setting up a perimeter of what you want to do, because sometimes this person can just take over the meeting, take over and justify. And so if there's a time limit, if there's a structure in which we're going through, this can be very helpful in dealing with the challenges that we're having.